Ladies and gentlemen, get the book Dr. Joshua Bowen wrote, The Atheist Handbook to the Old Testament. It is extremely full of knowledge and information for anyone, as well as join the Patreon. There's hundreds of videos that have been not released to the internet. You can ask questions and I will record them with these scholars in high definition. I do that all the time. You can also personal message me and you help the community grow. Thanks a lot. Dr. Joshua Bowen, welcome to MythVision podcast in person, finally.
Finally.
Yeah, no babies going into labor.
Hopefully there aren't babies going into labor, but
I hope me and you aren't having kids like that. So you never know, right? I have some really wonderful Patreon members who help make what I do possible. And your book came out and it's really good. I'm not just saying that. I mean, I listened to... when I read it, I was like, this is good. But then I listened to Seth even say it. And he's...
Yeah, see, that's why you like it, though. Because you can hear Seth's voice. That's what it is.
It's your voice, Seth. It's your voice. No, but seriously, it's full of very good information. And then you get to a section about ancient Near East, all this good stuff. Anyway, I just wanted to say that your book is good. We've been friends for a while, but finally we get the opportunity to do this. And so I give my patrons the opportunity to ask their questions.
Awesome.
They come first, because they help me do what I do. And people who contribute really make this possible. Michael Goodpastor says, hey, Derek, ask him about the Hebrew Bible and flat earth. I stray into those debates a little, and I hear debunkers say all the time that flat earth isn't there, but I certainly think it is. I'd love to hear Dr. Josh's thoughts there, as well as a rundown on A&E cosmology views in general. Be safe.
What a... This was not planned, by the way, but it's within arm's reach. This is the book you want to get, I think. I don't know if that's in the screen or in the shot, but so Hurwitz has an excellent rundown of A&E cosmology, and including the Hebrew Bible. So yes, to answer your question, you're absolutely right. The Hebrew Bible is... presents what they understood the world to be as flat. It doesn't think necessarily in those terms, like trying to contrast flat with round, because conception wasn't really there. But yeah, I mean, there's foundations to the earth. There's a big dome overhead. You can see that sort of thing in the book of Genesis. So yeah, there's no question. Going into specific details without having thought it through, I probably won't be able to do a lot of that. That being said, Volume 2 of the Atheist Handbook to the Old Testament has an entire chapter on ancient Near Eastern culture and the ways that they think and ways that they conceived of the world, those sorts of things. And there's a section on cosmology, so I'll get into this both from the ancient Near Eastern perspective and from the Hebrew Bible. But like one of the things that we see consistently is that like this in ancient Near Eastern cosmology, there are different types of stones that make up 3 different layers of heaven. They're different colored stones, which it fits with their perspective. If you think about the Etana myth, Etana rides up on an eagle's back to go up into heaven, and on his way up he looks down, and the way that he sees the world is very much in line with this sort of very like localized in their sense, not global cosmology. It's just a sort of a flat idea. And of course the Babylonian map of the world, which my advisor Paul Del Nero wrote an article a couple years ago on, and Gina Konstantopoulos has written on this, and we actually have an interview on our channel where we talk about this to some degree. But yeah, like the Hebrew Bible follows suit. And so again, foundations, dome over top.
Like a snow globe-ish. Like a flat on the bottom and it kind of has...
Yeah, that's right. And, these verses like in Isaiah where it talks about the circle of the earth. This is like the horizon, the word that's used for the horizon. And there are some people that want to make that out to be like, oh, like circle means like, a sphere. No, it doesn't. So it is.
Or like foundations of the earth. That sounds, how are you going to describe that other than when you build a foundation to a house, there's four corners. I mean, what do four corners even mean? The four corners of the earth. It sounds almost squarish, but I'm not going to say that they thought that. They might have thought that,
Yeah, I mean, the four corners, that has its own, but it's certainly indicative of this type of understanding. But the big thing is that the way they conceived of the world, and then I'll stop talking about it, but the way they conceived of the world, if you look at something like the Babylonian map of the world, is that there's this land mass that's in the center. How far it expands, is varied depending probably on the period. But then there's like this ocean on the outside, and then the far-flung edges of the world. So where like the flood survivor Utanapishtim, he lives out there. So in other words, it's
out in like the heavens out there.
No, like out. So if you look at the Babylonian map of the world, there are these. The Nagu is what they're called, but they're like points, these land areas where these sort of mythological areas exist. And Utanapishtim is where, one of the flood survivor, of course, Gilgamesh has to go through this tunnel and race the sun to get to him, right over the sea of death, So it's this sort of out there mythological areas. So, but yes. Flat Earth, no doubt.
So I got to poke just on cosmology for a second on something else I thought was interesting, and it was brought to my attention. When I look in the sky, like right now, I'm looking out the window and I see the blue. Are they saying that's water, or are they saying because it rains from the sky? And do you think they knew that clouds were the ones that produce water, or do you think that they thought the blue color, because you look at the ocean, it's blue. Look at a lake, you can see blue water. Do you think they thought that itself was blue and that the water disappeared when night came?
I'd have to think back through the A&E textual data because it's been about 2 years since I've looked at this. But they conceived of the heavens as made of different stones. And certainly if you read through like Genesis 1, for example, you've got this... The rakia, the Hebrew word there, rakia, rakah is a verbal root that has the idea of like hammering something out flat or thin. So the rakia is this hammered out thing that's essentially put into the midst of this primordial water and pulled up. And when that rakia goes up, there's water above it. So they certainly conceive of the water up there. Now, does that mean that that's the water that comes down during rain? I don't know that that's the case. Perhaps it contributes to it. But if you think about the flood story in Genesis 6 through 9, it's those sluice gates in the rakia that open back up and let all that water back down. And in the same way, the great founts of the deep break open underneath and let all that water back up. So it's this primordial water gets separated out. It's water beneath, water above the rakia. And when the flood, when Yahweh brings the flood, he just allows all that water to come back and recreate essentially Genesis 1 so that he can recreate.
And snow has its storehouses and things like that. I mean, it sounds like the angels are bringing in and out.
Yeah, and the other thing to remember, I think, with things like cosmology, with things like even mythology, is that there's not this unified consistency. And that means that, when you think about things like creation, concepts of creation, there's not this one concept of creation in the Hebrew Bible, nor in the ancient Near East as a whole. You have competing views, even in the biblical text. So in some passages, you were talking to Dr. Collins about this in one of your recent videos, talking about like keeping chaos in check. And creation is less about overtly creating ex nihilo and more about putting down this, the chaotic forces. And so he mentioned Levinson's book I can't remember the title of it because I never remember titles of books, but like keeping chaos at bay and its persistence. And, so that mythological character is less pronounced in Genesis 1. It's sort of demythologized, but yet shows up in places like Job and Isaiah. So, those are important things to remember, that there's not this unified concept, that the Hebrew Bible has differing ideas. It's very rabbinic, right? I mean, like arguing back and forth is sort of the fun of it, right? In engaging with these concepts. So
that's actually, a lot of the scholars would say that's one of the reasons why they think Paul's like a legit guy running around. Is like, he does like what a Jew would do, like arguing and trying to make his point, but having fun doing that. So I really appreciate that, mentioning the whole chaos thing. It kind of makes sense too, if you look at whoever the author of Revelation may have been, that they were aware of some type of cosmology like this, but in their mind they're thinking that dragon, that chaos, that Yahweh's going to put a complete end to it. No more wrestling with this thing, no more playing games. It's supposed to be done. Yeah. Like he's actually going to put a finality to that. And that was his hopes, at least. So,
and it's interesting to think, and we can talk about this later if you want, but like it's interesting to think about how a culture's mythology will develop in response to earlier mythology. And like you and I have talked a little bit about the development in ancient Near Eastern mythology, particularly in Akkadian texts. And one that we can go into in more detail later is looking at how this idea of the Tablet of Destinies and the person that goes and fights to get the Tablet of Destinies back, that whole fighting against chaos motif itself develops. So it's an interesting way to look at how diachronically these things develop.
The last question in this vein, is that globe behind your shoulder like a pun? Is there like a secret behind there being a globe while we're talking about the cosmology of the earth?
It's all about the Illuminati. So in like Freemasonry and everything, so.
It's, people are going to take that so serious. I'm not even joking. There's going to be some people who are going to go, I knew that I in your symbol, Derek. I have this all the time.
Was it you that we were live with where that was like people were really, or was it Skylar? I can't remember. It might have been Skylar. But our, the painting that we have in our background in the study, the Mushkushu dragon serpent thing, he's Illuminati,
I wish I was getting paid by the Illuminati.
Yeah.
But,
the big atheist money is nice. Yeah. I mean, I don't want anybody to be fooled. The big atheist money is nice.
Right?
There's no big atheist money.
I wish. No, I really appreciate it. Let's do this again.